Welcome to Right Here, a podcast about mental health, connection, and what it means to be human. I'm Christopher Mooney.
And I'm Kenyon Phillips. Each episode, we unpack the psychological patterns that shape our relationships, our sense of self, and the way we move through the world.
No jargon, no judgment, just thoughtful conversations that invite us to come back to the present moment.
Because when we're right here with ourselves and right here with each other, something shifts.
We get a little clearer, a little more regulated, a little more right.
Right Here is a podcast partnership with WPKN 89.5 FM in Bridgeport, streaming online at WPKN.org and via our free listening apps.
Today, we have a very special guest with us, Kenyon.
In the studio.
We have Elizabeth Miller, CLC, LSW, and MA.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I do have my master's in psych. Mm-hmm. I have my LSW, it's inactive, but I was a licensed social worker in New Jersey. And I have my CLC, which is my certified life coach certification.
Wow. So which one are you working with now?
I am working with my CLC.
Got it. What got you into social work? And then what got you excited about coaching?
What got me into social work was undergrad at Rutgers. I was super into psychology. And after that, I started applying around to different master's programs in psychology.
What got you excited about psychology?
I just really loved studying different diagnoses and forms of human behavior. And I really was always interested in working in a helping profession.
Right.
And I feel like that's really just what made me happy. And so after that, I was volunteering in hospitals and really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I applied to a social work program.
Right.
While I was at Columbia, we do different internships. And I did an outpatient one in a hospital setting. And that was great too.
What kind of clients were you working with in the hospital?
All different, really. In the hospital, it was mainly adults with different diagnoses, schizophrenia, bipolar, depression. I was sitting out on groups and I was, really learning to be a facilitator of those groups. And the training was great. What I realized was after being in the field that I wanted to kind of pivot. I learned about this life coaching certification and I didn't know much about it and I kind of dove into it and I learned that it's really focused on the present and the future and it's a lot of goal setting for individuals. Whereas traditional therapy, like in social work, has a lot to do with the past, present, and future.
Right.
Where life coaching, you really just focus on kind of the here and now and what to anticipate in the future. But I loved the goal setting part of it because I felt like it was so
practical.
Yes, definitely. There's so much agency, right, that goes along with it. You can set goals with your clients and you can measure them and it's very positive and uplifting and hopeful. Yeah. And I love that it kind of honors that part of being a human.
Right.
And I really love to connect to people on that level. So it's really great work. And yes, it is very different that, life coaching, you cannot diagnose, you cannot treat. It's not about talking about symptoms.
Yeah.
Ideally, someone that came to you that needed that kind of help would already have had a therapist or have a therapist.
So Liz, you're kind of explaining, so you had this background in clinical services as a social worker, as a therapist for years. And that's actually where we met many years ago, actually. I think it was almost 20 years ago.
Okay.
Settle down. Yeah. And we had the pleasure of working together at two different facilities, I think, both in substance use and working with adolescents. But so it sounds like there was this whole clinical background where it's focused on assessment, diagnosis, and really, as you said, past, present, and future, right? That kind of social work therapy approach. And the draw for you for life coaching was this idea of it's more present and kind of hey, this is what's going on right now. What do I need to do to get to my goal?
Right.
And kind of setting goals. And then the organization, I'm assuming, around how to actually achieve those things.
Absolutely. And I think that clients really learn a lot about themselves in this process. And I think a lot of it is about empowerment and how clients can walk away from a session and say, okay, these goals are achievable for me, or what do I need to do to make these goals achievable for me, which is incredibly rewarding to be a part of.
Right.
It's so important for clients to really understand what they're signing on to. So in terms of some kind of contract, which I do, to really explain that this is not where we're going to talk about symptoms and this is not where we're going to talk about the clinical stuff because that's not what I'm certified to do in this setting.
Give me an example. Give us an example of, a typical client situation when somebody comes to you needing coaching. What are they struggling with?
Eating healthier, like having a healthier like lifestyle. And then from there, we kind of break it down into like very manageable different things.
Right.
Going to the gym or just carving out time for yourself to do things that support physical health.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things. And like breaking them down even further, because everyone that comes in, they know, they live with themselves. So they know kind of what could possibly get in the way. So it's really interesting. And, there's a lot of like agency there. This is what I'm going to anticipate is going to happen, but this is what's really important to me. And I think that that's so wonderful in itself to be in a session with someone where they just can really figure out what are their priorities right now in their life and like what is most important to them.
Right.
I think that's what was so interesting and why we were so excited when you joined us too, and how it kind of aligns with what Kenyon and I do and the other people that we work with. But this idea that you keep talking about, right? This people know who they are, they know what they want. And when I've talked to you about this, that kind of resonates through when you talk about life coaching, like, oh, people know what they want. It's really important to follow the person's wishes, their goals, right? So part of your process sounds like it really is sitting down initially and saying, okay, where do you want to go? What's important to you? Where do you want to go with this?
Yeah.
And I feel like on the other side, as a clinician, that I run across people all the time, we talk about things that people want in their lives. And you have that skill as well. So I imagine it lends itself to life coaching, this idea of like being able to identify what you want and then not really knowing what the steps are to get there.
Right. And so a lot of times I think that when you are kind of reviewing this with your clients, other things from the past, you process those things. And that's the appropriate setting for that. And you process the symptoms around that and the feelings around that. On the other hand, in the life coaching session, it's really just a session devoted just to those goals that they could just stick with and figuring out what's going to get them there, like what's going to be the next step for them. And I find that it's incredibly positive for people.
What I see a lot is a client who has executive functioning challenges. And can we define executive functioning really quickly?
Yeah. So I think people think of executive functioning as scheduling and organization. And it is so much more. It can include that. But I think it's how people are processing and really looking at the overwhelm that comes with being able to organize thoughts and actions around tasks and around goals, right?
Yes.
Getting from like A to B. And so what I'll see a lot with somebody who has quote unquote executive functioning challenges, difficulties, is a lot of self-condemnation, a lot of shame.
Right.
Like, I'm so lazy. Sometimes if I'm working with a young person, their parents will say, well, my kid's just being lazy. And, we need to snap them out of it. I'd love to get your perspective on the shame that can kind of come with that.
Absolutely. And I have to say that in this regard, that's why it's wonderful to work supplementally, life coaching supplemental to therapy, because those feelings can come up with me, right? And then I can refer my client back to their therapist to process that. But the therapist can also bring up what happens in my sessions and say, well, you achieved this, and this week, and that's fantastic. And, that like can also set the scene for those kind of settings as well.
Yeah.
Therapy's not just talking about feelings, right? There's actual structured work to it. And you mentioned, working with treatment plans and setting goals. And I think Kenyon and I have talked about that often. Like, hey, what the idea of therapy is to have this space where you can explore feelings around it. Most people come into that process, to resolve some kind of like goal or some kind of
They're
issue.
looking for a space to kind of go back and maybe talk about past relationships.
Sure. They may have a goal that's come up or something that's come up where they need to say, okay, I want to achieve this.
Right. That changes a lot throughout therapy.
Exactly. The space then where life coaching comes in, it's not focused necessarily on all the feelings and the mood around that, or maybe the past relationships and looking at that. You're talking really about things that I want to achieve. So say somebody wants to get a job, or they want to maybe go back to school or do better in school, or just organize their life better.
Right. A lot of times this is what I want to achieve for this overall larger umbrella goal. Like these are the steps, like this is what I'm focused on right now. And they'll, come to me and say, I'm talking with my therapist and I'm working on this, but this is what I really want to hone in on. And I find that this is what those sessions are about. What do I want to achieve? Like, what are the steps? And it's really the clients define what that what those steps ultimately are. And they are the ones that are really in the driver's seat because they know themselves the best. So they're like, this is what I think I'm going to need to do. And this is what we talk about during the session. In therapy, it's a lot about like, how did I get here? And like, why am I having these issues organizing? And why am I thinking about these other things? So I think that life coaching, like as a supplement to therapy, is wonderful. And it's wonderful for the life coach to have constant communication with that client's therapist. So that, I mean, ultimately it is like a biopsychosocial model, right? Because we want to treat our clients as, holistically.
Tell us what biopsychosocial is, because it's important. Like in Kenyon and I, we focus a lot on like removing the psych terms.
Biopsychosocial in terms of who's around them, where they live, feelings, physical, everything.
Medical,
everything.
So this is really taking the whole person, breaking down what do they need from a biological kind of perspective, what might they need from a psychological perspective, and then what do they need socially.
Right. And it's both the therapy and the life coaching that I think creates that, along with other therapies like dance therapy and art therapy that can come up as well. I think that that's ultimately what could really help individuals.
Right. How do you get people to do things? Because that's kind of like what it feels like sometimes.
I think that like the goal for the life coach is really to help empower their clients so that they don't feel like they're going to rely on me to do these things for them, because ultimately they are the ones that are figuring out how to do it for themselves.
Got it. So you're not there just like cracking a whip.
No, but I'm helping them to prioritize. I'm helping them to organize. I'm kind of like saying back to them what I'm hearing them tell me about what's important to them.
Nice.
And I think that is a process in itself.
There's a focus on values as well. So it's not just goals. It's like values clarification.
Yes.
So you're working. Okay, here's what's important, because it might not be what everybody else thinks is important. In fact, often I feel like that's what we run into, is that everybody else in the system wants this person to do something, and they're like, well, I want my kid to do this. I want my 30-year-old child to do this.
Right.
And that's not necessarily what's important to the person that we're seeing.
That's where you start. You start with where the client is and what they want to work on, what goals they want to set, what do they think is achievable.
Right. Which is, I love that because it's so similar to what we do as therapists in terms of, meeting the client where they are and not, we're not controlling them, trying to turn them into somebody they're not. It is about helping them feel empowered. It just seems like there's a nice through line. How wonderful that you're a therapist, a social worker, and a coach.
Well, so right now my license for therapy is inactive, but I'm actually reactivating it because I'm finding that I would like to wear that hat as well. Like not in the same session, but like have sessions for therapy and have sessions for life coaching, because I really do miss that.
What does it look like when you're in a session? And we were talking about this earlier. How do you assess, okay, this is a life coaching issue versus this is a therapy issue?
Right. I guess anything, that I feel would fall under the category of diagnosing or treating any kind of mental health situation, I would refer them back to the therapist that they're meeting with.
Right. So what does that look like? What's an example?
If someone is talking about being severely depressed and how their depression has showed up this week, this is a conversation to have with your therapist, and let's talk about X, Y, and Z.
Right.
When people get into the why am I like this versus like this is who I am now, how do I work with it? Right. So if it goes into the why am I like this like kind of realm, then you're like, no, well, I get it, and that's really important for you to identify. Let's set that aside. Let's assume that this is who you are. Now, what are we doing about that to move forward?
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so your distinction between knowing when somebody might need therapy or knowing when somebody might need coaching is based on that. But when do people need both? Or do you feel like people would just use one or the other? Or is it really important maybe to have both things integrated in somebody's process?
I think it's actually really important for the client's therapist to determine when they could be a candidate for life coaching.
Okay.
Are most of the sessions, really focused on, setting goals and really wanting to just like focus on that? And in those conversations, is that kind of getting taken away because the past relationships and the symptoms keep coming through. And then I think it could be a really good adjunct to therapy.
Yeah,
absolutely. I always look at this process, Liz, as something you've got therapy and then life coaching, and they're separate, but they are so complementary of each other. Because I've talked with clients about this for over 20 years, which is, hey, like, what are you doing in between sessions?
Right.
It's all well and good to come in every week or twice a week or even, every other week, whatever it might be, to talk about what's going on and what you want to do and why there might be a block. But they need that accountability.
Yes.
And I think in my experience, people have really actually loved having the accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think, like you said, spending those sessions talking about what you want to do and then spending actual sessions talking about, okay, like I did this week.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the next step?
Yeah.
It's very exciting. And like I said, it's a lot of agency and it's really positive for people.
Yeah.
Moving forward with things.
Right.
Which is, I think, for many people, very beneficial.
Yeah, they want to make progress.
Yes.
And so much of what I deal with as a therapist is empowerment. We've talked about it already. I'll say it again. Helping people feel empowered.
Yeah.
Helping people elevate their own sense of self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're actually accomplishing tasks that they've set for themselves,
Right.
That's a wonderful way to do that.
It's wonderful. And when you're in a session with someone, I think it changes the accountability a little bit when you have a witness, right? Like a life coach who you're setting these goals with, trying to figure out what the steps are to get there and being able to process, I did this week and this is how it was for me. It's different, I think, when you have someone there that's kind of like cheering you on.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many shared kind of aspects of both things, right? Like I would imagine you'd need like a healthy rapport with somebody to do that.
Yes.
Like, right, there's still this epistemic trust. There's still this kind of connection in the process that you end up building this relationship with somebody so they can feel accountable, right? It's not just calling somebody out and saying, hey, you got to do this. It really is this trust that you have with them.
Absolutely. That is so important to establish that early on. I think that in any kind of helping profession, especially in life coaching, for someone to feel like this is their place, that they can feel safe enough to make it their own. And I think that lends itself a lot to the rapport that you establish with your clients.
Right. Do you ever worry that like, okay, I'm enabling somebody because I'm being too encouraging of them? Or on the other side of it, is there ever a time where you think like, oh, wow, I'm coming down too hard on this person? How do you sort of find the balance?
How do I gauge that? Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's when the therapeutic relationship comes in terms of a life coach communicating with that person's therapist. Which should happen. I see my clients usually weekly, and I usually speak with their clinician weekly as well. That I would kind of nip very early on when we're like establishing a goal. If I know that that's something that they're working on with their therapist, I would kind of leave it there and say, like, I think you should continue this and let's talk about other goals that you could possibly work on. And I also want to reiterate that the life coaching contract is really important here because clients are signing on to that. So they are saying that they're fully aware what these sessions entail and what they do not. And that's important.
Can you give me a clear understanding of what that contract looks like? Like what kind of things are in it?
That contract usually contains what is discussed during the sessions and what is not discussed. And it clearly defines that this is not therapy and that it has nothing to do with diagnosis, it has nothing to do with treatment, and that the client is still responsible for all the things that they are working on with their therapist in that setting with them.
Got it.
So there's very clear language about what it is not.
Yes.
And then, we're going to meet weekly, bi-weekly, that kind of thing. So we're
going to be doing exercises not physical. We're going to be doing exercises in the sessions. Sometimes there's going to be homework. All of it is very present and future focused. All of it is focused on goals and moving forward.
Got it.
And like what's important to me.
Yeah. And Liz, you talk so much about the importance of success and kind of like when people are achieving things and how good it feels, right? And you're kind of like this positive forward momentum. How is that tracked in a session, or how is that tracked over time? Do you review it with people, or do they just come back and be like, hey, like I did this week? And
no, I have different formats that I use depending on how I can best meet the client where they're at. And then from there, every week it's tracked because I bring up the paper whether they wrote it or I wrote it, and we kind of go through it and we say, were you able to achieve this? What was that experience like for you? And then at the end of the session, we plan for next week and what are their new goals, or maybe we're still working on the same goal. And sometimes we work on the same goal for a really long time, and we sometimes work on one step for a really long time. And we can break that down even further. And in each session, we revisit that.
Got it. Is there a sense that you have that like everybody could use coaching? Because listening to you describe it, it sounds like, oh, well, I need that. And everyone I know, everyone I can think of in my life could really use it.
Yeah. I mean, it's positive. It's a positive, forward-moving process that anyone can benefit from. Mm-hmm. And having a witness to that and holding you accountable for that is also something that is really important.
Yeah. To a degree, would you consider yourself as like a teacher of life skills that people just don't get, that a lot of people just don't get?
No, I feel like it's not, like I'm not imposing my own teaching or my own values. I'm really trying to see how they're defining what they want our sessions to be and what they want their life to look like in the future and how are they going to get there. It's really driven by that. I mean, can I talk about healthy habits? Yeah, but it's not, it's really like meeting them where they're at and having them say like, okay, I'm going to try to carve out this 15 minutes because I know in my schedule, which they know better than anybody, this is what will work for me so that I won't be exhausted. And I think that it's very interesting when people are processing like that, they're like teaching it to themselves. It's kind of like when you teach someone something, you learn it better because you're talking about it. So it's like when they're talking to me about the goals they want to work on, that process in itself, it's like helping themselves understand it and where they're coming from.
Right.
That's what I see.
Makes a lot of sense.
And then along the way, you're giving suggestions on what to do or how to do, or are you asking like, hey, what do you think you need to do in this situation to achieve this?
Yes. Hey, what do you think you need to do in this situation, and what are you anticipating?
As like a possible outcome or maybe a hurdle.
Yes.
Got it.
Right.
That overlaps, I mean, I think with our process in clinical work too, which is that idea of not imposing our beliefs or understandings of things, but just kind of making suggestions along the way if people need, and really helping them kind of look, this is where we are, this is where you want to go. What are some possible places to look, and can we be more creative about how we find those places?
It's like, how do you think you can get there? Like, how do you tell me what you think about this process and how you prioritize it for yourself?
I imagine a lot of people would be like, well, I don't know, I hired you. Why don't you tell me what I need to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the same when I used to be a therapist and people would just be like,
just tell me, right?
Well, just take care of my kid.
Just fix this,
fix this
thing.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, it's so much more effective if somebody's
Well, it's also like we said, if we want to come back to this like whole huge, amazing thing of empowerment, that's essentially what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right? Because you want people, when they've kind of like graduated from the sessions, to walk away and be like, okay, I've had experience like setting my own goals and like figuring out the steps. I understand and I know what could get in the way for me. So I can do this on my own. And that's really what you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had a professor in college explain to us that we actually have no ability to empower people.
Right.
But it's how it's referred to often.
Yeah.
And I think that's what these ideas get conflated.
Social work language a lot. It's about like a lot of
empowering people.
We're not at agencies. Yeah.
We are helping people feel empowered. We're helping set the stage for that. We're highlighting what they might need. We're helping them discover that. And as Liz is saying, that when somebody feels empowered, you get to watch them kind of like grow. And I don't want to be really cheesy, but just kind of like blossom into something that they weren't. I don't know, I think a lot of people in our field, when you ask them like what keeps bringing you back to do this work, it's watching that happen.
Absolutely.
Watching people achieve goals or have some success in that, to suddenly find some sense of voice and agency.
Yeah. Yeah. And adding that structure and accountability in between therapy sessions, I think is so useful. The structure and accountability that you, Liz, offer as a coach, it helps you get from point A to point B so much faster in a way.
Especially because, in these sessions, these weekly sessions with their therapists, it is so important to process all the feelings and emotions and triggers that have come up that week because of past experiences. And that easily takes up that entire session. So I feel like to have a place just for this, just for that client to have this like space to talk about these things and to own it and to just like genuinely define their priorities and the life that they want to have is so important.
Right. Can you just give a few examples of goals that you've helped clients achieve?
So a lot of times it's focused just because of the ages that I've worked with, but around school and different things, different huge assignments that are due in the future, or just making time to even be able to like complete homework assignments, or just little things during the week that they are prioritizing around school, like different meetings. Sometimes it's also just making time so that they could be with other people socially.
I like this idea of like the social interaction as well. And I feel like that comes up so often. It's like, I feel we talked about this in one of our last podcasts, this idea of being alone. Yes. And I think people struggle with that so much. And we saw such an uptick during 2020 in the pandemic about the loneliness. And so this is, hey, we can also use this life coaching, process to actually work on social skills,
right,
and interacting with others.
Right. And what we do in our sessions is we kind of define goals around spending time with other people. And in their session with their therapist, they can talk about their experience. Like, what was that like? And what does that bring up for you? And then when they come and meet with me, it's kind of like, okay, well, can we increase the amount of times that you were social this week? I just find that in itself really changes things for people. Because then like you're also increasing the amount of witnesses that they have in their life now.
Right. I work with a lot of substance use disorder, people in recovery, and a parallel in recovery within the context of 12-step recovery. It's great to go to meetings. And a lot of people who are in recovery go to meetings every week. Taking it to that next level of actually doing step work in between meetings tends to really change things.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you see a shift, a behavioral shift. And Chris said it, what are people doing between sessions? Exactly.
I think that's where I've seen a lot of people struggle. It's just like that follow through in the middle.
Right.
And to have this fill that out, it would make everybody's life feel so much easier.
Right, because the time that they have with you and Chris to talk about this clinically is so important. But then that other time when they can really focus on, okay, well, this week I'm going to 3 meetings a week. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And what are the steps to getting me there? I'm going to write it down on my fridge. I'm going to set reminders. I'm going to figure out how I can get there. I'm going to talk to my sponsor and see if maybe he can take a walk with me there. Like different things like that is such a great supplement to the therapy, because you see like the actual, like it's like action and it's achievable. And for a lot of these clients to see that these things are achievable, it really helps them in a very different way.
Right.
This is great. So people who want to actually work with a coach, they don't have to be in therapy. It's helpful, but this is not just related to a clinical process, or is it?
There's a lot of different coaching, right? And this is specifically the coaching that I do, but coaching is a huge kind of umbrella term of a lot of different facets. Because of my history, this is kind of like where I landed.
It is more related to the things people identify in a clinical process.
For me, yes. I mean, there are coaches that just kind of work with only professional men. And so I can't speak to that, but I can just speak to what I do, which is connected to their therapeutic sessions. I'm not doing the actual therapy. I'm just kind of complementing it by honoring this other part of their human experience.
This is so amazing. And I feel like it's such a valuable part of this process. I really appreciate you coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you.
No, this is amazing, and you have such a valuable resource for people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Right Here, a podcast partnership with WPKN 89.5 FM in Bridgeport, streaming online at WPKN.org and via our free listening apps. If today's conversation resonated with you, we encourage you to follow, review, and share Right Here with anyone you think would appreciate it.
We'll be back soon with another conversation designed to bring a little more light to the human condition. I'm Christopher Mooney.
And I'm Kenyon Phillips.
Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Right Here is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for therapy, diagnosis, or treatment. If you're experiencing a mental health crisis, please contact a local emergency service or your trusted mental health professional.